So we've got a bunch of updates here on the home front about the censorship regime that the Trump administration is trying to put in place at this point, threatening broadcasters who dare accurately cover his disastrous war. These are some comments from Air Force One last night from Trump himself. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
They put out phony stories, the kamikaze boats. The kamikaze boats don't exist. They're fake. And you can almost see that when you look at them. It looks great, yeah. Because if they did exist, we'd hit them just like we hit other boats all over the place. But they don't exist. In fact, some of the people say, where are the boats? Well, how come nobody's seen the boats? You know why? Because it's AI generated. It's fake. And I found, I didn't realize this before we started, but Iran is known for a lot of fake news. And they deal with our fake news. And I actually think it's pretty criminal because our media companies, who have no credibility whatsoever, are putting out information that they know is false, and it's a very dangerous thing for the country. I think they could be in serious jeopardy.
So I know that's hard to hear, but he says there that the coverage is pretty criminal of these specific things. And let's go ahead and put his True Social up there. This is D2, guys, just to emphasize how hard he's going on these threats against journalists in the way that they cover the war. Here he is threatening to charge media outlets with treason if they report things in a way that he does not personally like. So he says, Iran has long been known as a master of media manipulation and public relations. They're militarily ineffective and weak, but are really good at feeding the very appreciative fake news media false information. Now, AI has become another disinformation weapon that Iran uses quite well, considering they're being annihilated by the day. They showed phony kamikaze boats, this is what he was talking about in that clip, shooting at various ships at sea, which looks wonderful, powerful, and vicious, but these boats don't exist. It's all false information to show how tough their already defeated military is. The 5 U.S. refueling planes that were supposedly struck down and badly damaged, according to the Wall Street Journal's fake reporting, and others are all in service with the exception of one, which will soon be flying the skies. Buildings and ships that are shown to be on fire are not. It's fake news generated by AI. For instance, Iran, working in close coordination with the fake news media, shows our great USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, one of the largest and most prestigious ships in the world, burning uncontrollably in the ocean. Not only was it not burning, it was not even shot at. Iran knows better than to do that. Isn't that the one saga that supposedly there was a laundry fire?
Yes.
That was the alleged problem there. The story was knowingly fake. And in a certain way, you can say that those media outlets that generated it should be brought up on charges for treason for the dissemination of false information. The fact is, Iran is being decimated. The only battles they win are those that they create through AI and are distributed by corrupt media outlets. The radical left-wing press knows this full well, but continues to go forward with false stories and lies. That's why their approval rating is so low. I can win a presidential election in a landslide, getting only 5% positive press. They have no credibility. I'm so thrilled to see Brendan Carr, the chair of the Federal Communications Commission, looking at the licenses of some of these corrupt and highly unpatriotic news and scare quotes organizations. They get billions of dollars of free American airwaves and use it to perpetuate lies, both in news and almost all of their shows, including the late night morons who get gigantic salaries for horrible ratings and never get, as I used to say in The Apprentice, fired. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Not only does he say, maybe we should file charges of treason against companies, media companies that report things that we don't like, but number two, I'm glad to see that Brendan Carr, chair of the FCC, is already moving in the direction of threatening media outlets and threatening their broadcast licenses for quote unquote unpatriotic news.
Yes.
Just so disturbing and Orwellian.
Well, you can already see. Let's put Brendan Carr's tweet up there, guys. This is D1. He's the FCC chairman. He says broadcasters that are running hoaxes and news distortions, also known as fake news, have a chance now to correct course before their license renewals come up. The law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest. They will lose their license if they do not. And frankly, changing course is in their own business interest, blah, blah, blah. The point is that this would affect the direct networks, NBC, or or NBC, ABC, et cetera, that actually still require a broadcast license from the FCC. Yours truly, we're all here on the internet and or cable news who wouldn't be as affected. But if you compare the two things together, CBS News and obviously the Trump administration's support for CBS News, you can see how they're trying to control the narrative. And what Trump said there is empirically bullshit. For example, do you remember that crowd that we showed, Crystal, for the morning of the Ayatollah for his funeral? He is saying that's AI generated. It literally came from a photographer working for the New York Times. It's not AI generated. And now, there's a couple things that are very scary about that. Do you want to know who claimed that it was AI generated? The
Israelis. Yeah.
So how did Israel lobby BS talking points get into the brain and the mouth of the president of the United States? That's a very interesting question. So much so that he wants to file treason charges against the people who publish and or talk about such videos. Then you have combined the FCC and this so-called patriotic news. I saw this first during this press conference with Pete Hegseth. We have D3. Let's go ahead and play this. This is from Friday, where he's lambasting the press for accurately giving a report of what's going on with Iran. Let's take a listen.
Or more fake news from CNN. Reports that the Trump administration underestimated the Iran war's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. Patently ridiculous, of course. For decades, Iran has threatened shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. This is always what they do, hold the strait hostage. CNN doesn't think we thought of that. It's a fundamentally unserious report. The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better.
The sooner David Ellison takes over that network, the better. What do you think that exactly shows you in terms of their support for David Ellison, who was Lindsey Graham's guest for the State of the Union? Do you remember that one? Literally Lindsey Graham's guest for the State of the Union is going to be owning CNN. So they're going to similar, by the way, who's going to be affected by a broadcast license because of total oligarchic ownership of media and so-called patriotic press. And in the press conference, Pete Hegseth out there is talking about how you shouldn't say things like, for example, he took issue with a headline where it was like, Iran war widens. How could you take issue with that? He said you should say Iran is defeated or Iran is not doing as well or something like that. And I was like, Iran war widens is a statement of literal empirical fact. If you hit 10 countries in a single day, that's widening. That's what it's called. And I mean, look, this is nuts. And when compare it with what we're about to talk about with Tucker, this is the most dangerous thing. It is also entirely fitting with every time that this nation goes to war, Americans who live under it become less free. The censorship that happens, either self-censorship or state pressure that happened under Iraq, shaped the entire environment for pushing the country into war under false pretenses. Under Vietnam, very similarly, the crazy amounts of censorship, state pressure that was here at home, it empowered the state. Remember the Patriot Act, of course, also after 9/11. During World War II, we had literal government censorship where they're deciding what or what not. Different reporters can report out from the battlefield. And then the origins of wartime censorship of a lot of the power of the state is the American Civil War and the First World War, where you had the exact same situation play out here at home. State power, locking people up for reporting things badly, using an expansion of surveillance and censorship, all under the guise of patriotism and supporting the war effort. This is why it is so dangerous, actually, for us here at the home front. And in those cases, many of those wars were much more popular, Crystal, than this one is today. If you launch a war with 60% disapproval, I mean, just imagine the way that you're going to have to censor your way out of that one. So you actually could see an even bigger crackdown that comes from, at that time, at least people were buying the BS. This time, not so sure. Not this time.
Yeah. And Trump is, he's deeply authoritarian to begin with. And even before launching this incredibly unpopular, illegal war of choice, was aggressively going after the media. And so, I think there's a few things to note here. First of all, this is also a sign of weakness because they're clearly crashing out. Trump himself is like lashing out at reporters who ask questions he doesn't like, issuing these long True Social posts. He put another one out defending the good honor of Mark Levin, blah, 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 who, Megyn Kelly said he had a micro penis and now Trump's got to come and ride to the rescue and make sure everybody knows that Mark Levin is a great American patriot, et cetera, et cetera. In any case, he's clearly crashing out. And Hegseth is not saying this stuff on his own. Brendan Carr is not saying this stuff on his own. He was at Mar-a-Lago right before he issues this statement. It's etc. This is all coming directly from Trump, because if there's one thing he knows, it is TV news coverage. And he is watching this and he knows, even in spite of the fact that so much of the coverage is pro-war propaganda to an absurd degree, he is watching this and going, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good. What can I do? And so he reaches for all of his tools of bullying and threats and coercion. Even prior to this, we had all the lawsuits against media organizations to get them to bend to his will. You have major media organizations being sold off to the Ellisons, as Pete Hegseth reminds here. You said, okay, the threats against the primetime broadcasters, like those don't apply to cable news. They don't apply to where we are on YouTube, et cetera. But hey, TikTok was sold off to the Ellisons. So they have other means of, trying to coerce and trying to stifle dissent. And the TikTok thing was 100% over. They didn't like the way that the Gaza war was being accurately portrayed. The Gaza genocide was being accurately portrayed there. They didn't like that. So he got a crony, a pro-Zionist, pro-Trump crony to go in and strike that deal. All these media companies, they are giant conglomerates. They don't care about the news. They don't care about the truth. What they care about is their bottom line. So if YouTube has a deal in front of them, if any of these companies has a deal in front of them, they want it to go through, they're going to be listening closely to these words about, unpatriotic content and how you've got to be towing the Go USA line. And some of that stuff has real power. You also have the other effect here is to try to gin up a lot of public fervor and outrage at media outlets that cover things accurately. So if we could put up D6, ABC News, they had a headline that I think, again, is just accurate reflection of what is going on, even as Iran has been pummeled by Israeli and American airstrikes with its military capabilities greatly diminished, which is actually the Trump administration's framing. Tehran continues to demonstrate resolve, both in adapting and expanding its military tactics, observers told ABC News. That is just reality. I mean, you guys saw that the drone strike video. Right. You saw the missiles that were landing in Tel Aviv. You see the Strait of Hormuz continue to be held. You see the oil refineries, struck in the GCC countries. Like, that is just accurate. And yet, if you go and look at the comments below this post, you have all these people, and you can put some of these up on the screen, who are furious. How dare you? This is Iranian propaganda. Observers told ABC News, the Observer is being their news. RT and Jackson Hinkle. Iran is defending their own country. The U.S. is not. Well, that one is sort of accurate. ABC News wants us to know that our enemies are very strong and brave. So tons of outrage here in the comments of people who want to be lied to. That is what's going on here. And sadly, we saw this in the Iraq War, there was a large contingent of Americans who were desperate to be lied to about that war as well. And were furious at anyone who tried to puncture that bubble. The other piece, Sagar, that I think is really important to talk about here is Trump is right that AI has destabilized reality. Mm-hmm. And you do see that. I mean, when we're trying to figure out what is real, what's true, what's false, et cetera, it is very difficult, very, very difficult. And we are, I think, extremely conservative about the images that we bring you. We only put up things that are absolutely verified. Even then it continues to be dicey, et cetera. But there's no doubt that it's become much more difficult to separate truth from fiction because of the quality of these AI deepfakes now. The BB is BB alive or dead question is a good example of that. And so not only do you have things that are fake, that are being disseminated, that are, have the appearance of truth, but also what Trump is doing is he's taking things that actually did happen and trying to undermine your confidence in them by saying, no, that's AI. So like you said, the marches and protests in favor of the government in Iran, which is the thing that really has happened, not just once, but multiple times. He wants to say, no, that's AI. And we saw this playbook in Gaza as well, where they would say, these horrific images that you're seeing, these are AI, these are fake. This is Pallywood. Trump is using that same playbook. And because AI has destabilized reality, unchecked AI has destabilized reality, and there are no limits put on this, there's no ability to tell truth from fiction, it gives him an angle to be able to push these bullshit Israeli talking points. And to tell you the truth, I think he believes it. I think he believes that those 100%. Protests were fake. I think he's buying whatever his, the Israeli handlers are telling him at this point.
That is so crazy. Yeah. And I think we should all be extremely, extremely on guard, because this can move fast. It can move quick. The power of the state. We're about to talk about this with Tucker Carlson, and what they will do usually. Let's just move over.
Like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.